Oh, well, hello there, dearies. What good timing. I was just about to tell you something special. Something special and dear to my old heart.
Do we really have to be dressed like this?
You always dress like that. Why yes, dearie. We need to explain to the good people why Princess Knight is the great-grandmother of all magical girls. And what better way than to be literal?
I really don't think this is necessary. Can't we just go back to the old setup?
Oh, fine. Be boring like that.
See? Isn't this better? So natural.
I thought the other way was more interesting. And look at you. You're still wearing the
It's
same...
Princess Knight, everybody!
We are the MahouShowGirls. My name is Kayla.
And my name is Brittany.
Kayla likes history.
And Brittany likes sparkle dasu.
Are you ready for some magic? 'Cause this is the end of our song. Deal with it.
Kira-chan, weren't you gonna tell these nice people about the grandmother of all magical girls, Princess Knight?
I am. I just want to glare at you for a few more seconds. And I'm done. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of MahouShowGirls. This time we start at the very beginning with the one that started them all.
So, Princess Knight. I hear the word princess in there. Does that mean that we're finally getting to some sparkles and desu?
Whoa. Slow down. Before we get to the story itself, we need to talk about the man who started it all, Osamu Tezuka.
Osamu Tezuka?
Osamu Tezuka. He's the creator of Princess Knight and many other anime and manga that you probably already know. Osamu Tezuka was born in 1928 in Osaka, Japan. During childhood, he went to the Takarazuka Theater. The Takarazuka Theater was a retaliation against Kabuki Theater, which had an all-male cast. The Takarazuka Theater instead had an all-female cast, and it usually performed romantic musicals, which would heavily inspire him later on. Although he trained as a medical student, he had a passion for art, and with his mother's encouragement, went to do manga because of it. He is credited as the godfather of anime and manga due to innovative techniques and the reinvention of a genre, specifically the sci-fi genre. He was heavily inspired by Disney and helped make manga a force in the West. His characters tended to have larger eyes, and he did many retellings of Western stories which resonated with a Western audience. He was so popular, in fact, and so innovative with his genre that Stanley Kubrick invited him to be the art director for a 2001 Space Odyssey. Sadly, he couldn't make it, but it's said that he loved the film. Some of his well-known works are Princess Knight, Astro Boy, Blackjack, Kimba the White Lion, and his most ambitious piece, Hinotori, or translated as Phoenix. He worked on Hinotori from 1956 to 1989, and he only stopped because he had passed away.
That's all fine and dandy, but I'm getting bored. When do we get to the princess stuff?
Now! Sort of. The manga, also known as Riben no Kishi, was created in 1953 and ran until 1956. Set in a medieval-styled Europe called Silverland, Princess Sapphire must pretend to be a boy in order to inherit the throne, as women in her kingdom can't. When she is born, her father announces she is a boy because Duke
Duralaman.
I'll say Gorilla Man, is an evil man who would repress the people if his son became king. Her sidekick, an angel in training, is sent to her because when she was born, the angel, named Choppy, gave her the blue heart of a boy and the pink heart of a girl. Thus, he needs the blue heart back, but she is unwilling, so he's kind of stuck with her.
Their adventures usually revolve around Princess Sapphire battling fairy tale creatures and political forces. She often fights the Duke and his assistant Neelon, who are trying to prove that she is a female, thus discrediting her claim to the throne. The climax of the series involves the King and the Queen being kidnapped by the Duke and forcing Sapphire to flee. The King and Queen are then murdered, and the Duke tries to place his son on the throne, but then is himself murdered by another villain, the evil Mr. X, whom is allowing invaders into the kingdom.
With 3 magical balls representing the different kingdoms, Sapphire melts them into a battle axe and duels Mr. X. As Mr. X is about to kill Sapphire, Choppy calls to God for help, who sends a lightning bolt down, killing Mr. X and destroying the castle. Sapphire manages to escape, but Choppy lays dying. He asks God to revive Sapphire's parents and ascends to heaven at his sacrifice. Sapphire and her companion, some prince guy named Frank, who even cares, end up getting married, and thus the series is concluded.
But wait! This just sounds like superheroes and comics. Does Princess Knight even cover any of our guidelines? Kara-chan, what about the board? Forget about the board!
Okay, while Princess Knight doesn't check off a lot of our guidelines, she does at least have a few of the main components.
Alright, I guess you're right. I think I do remember you saying something about having like some sort of companion or sidekick. Choppy, right? He wasn't an animal, but wasn't he some kind of like chibi humanoid angel thing?
Yes, he was. Princess Knight also laid the foundation for the need to hide her identity. Women in her kingdom can't inherit the throne, thus she had to protect herself or be discredited.
That's true. Oh, and we can't forget the most prominent thing. She's a young, prepubescent girl who's battling evil. Even if she is pretending to be a boy.
Princess Knight didn't just lay the foundations for the magical girl genre. She set out to be a first in many other fields as well.
Like what?
Well, on the topic of gender, Sapphire is credited as being one of, if not the first, gender-neutral character portrayed during her time. She is portrayed as childlike, with both feminine and masculine qualities, mainly due to the 2 hearts. This led to the heavy inspiration in other such shows such as Revolutionary Girl Utena and The Rose of Versailles. I mean, even Haruhi from Oran Host Club could have an argument that she too presents as non-discriminatory in what gender she happens to be assigned. That being said, however, the other women in the show tend to have a more black and white representation, being either the evil vixen or the demure good girl.
And manga also got an upgrade. Previously, manga had functioned much like comic strips, focusing on simple panels and usually being more of a gag strip. Princess Knight brought in the idea of a narrative structure with an ongoing plot and more of the manga style that we know and love today.
Not content to redefine the manga market at home, Tezuka helped export manga to the West, where others previously found little success. With the new style of more Western features such as the larger eyes, the Western-inspired stories, all of this heavily inspired by Disney, which we had discussed earlier on, it appealed to a broader audience and helped make the manga market much more prominent in the West.
Alright, well, this is all well and good, facts and junk, but I want to talk about the show.
Okay, what specifically about the show?
Their voices. What the heck is up with those English voices?
Okay, for the next part, this is going to be more discussion-based. And what we're discussing is specifically the English dubbed version of the anime released late 50s, early 60s. So that's where our knowledge lies heavily in. So we're not going to talk about the manga or any reboots or anything else. It's just this specific part of the show.
Which actually has a lot that we can talk about because they did quite a bit of things when they brought it over from the Japanese version to the English version, as well as the idea that it's kind of looking more Western.
Yeah, so with that idea, let's start off first with style and what it kind of reminds us of and how the editing was done.
Editing, man.
I was about to say, being our resident editor, do you want to start off with it?
That editing, man. I can tell you one thing, that was some really strange editing. It was very jumpy, but a lot of that has to do with cuts. If you ever watch any anime, even back from the early 90s...
Think Speed Racer.
Yeah, they have to cut a lot of things out to appeal to a more Western audience. And it really shows.
It's a lot of re-putting things because, I don't know, there's a lot of things where they said, oh, Western audiences can't handle this weird Japanese market. So then they cut a lot from the show, and in doing so, they're like, oh, now the show went from 22 minutes to 15 minutes. We need to rearrange some stuff. So you get a lot of awkward holds and camera movements, and like there's certain scenes that don't really make sense.
For example, there's a lot of instances where Princess Sapphire, or as she's called in the English version, just Princess Knight, or Prince Knight, she'll just be, there'll be an action scene, but all of a sudden the characters will just be like, oh, just holding on their faces, making reaction noises. Which again, if you've seen Speed Racer, it's the same thing.
Personally, my favorite scene is actually from... Okay, so, confession time. I don't think we watched the episodes in the right order, but that being said, I didn't actually feel out of place watching them how I did.
No, I don't think you necessarily need to watch them in the order.
So the episode that I saw was episode 8, and it had to do with the flowers.
Right.
The Kingdom of Flowers.
The Kingdom of Flowers.
And I want to show you the scene with this awkward cutting, because I think you guys will appreciate it as well.
All right, Rogue. I will make you take back those words if it's the last thing that I do. Anga! He's going to release the giant hornets. Hornets, you will attack Prince Knight.
Okay, so you saw that. That was weird, right?
Yeah, it was pretty weird. But, and I mean, for the most part, it's mostly what Brittany said. There's a lot of holds on their faces going, oh, no! The stories were there wasn't really an overarching plot to it. So it made it really easy to, some episodes I just zoned out. There were just some, if you asked me to recite a lot of the episodes, I wouldn't be able to tell you a lot except the ones that kind of stood out to me, because the rest just blurred together in the sense of, it just wasn't interesting.
Well, they also, I think, and this might be something we can touch on later, they reuse characters or villains a lot. They reuse plots a lot, and they just try to do a lot of filler. To be honest, the episodes I remember the most were the ones that had characters I really enjoyed.
Yes. But before we get to that, I want to say that stylistically, Princess Knight reminded me a lot of Western cartoons I used to watch a lot as a kid. And I'm kind of looking through this through, nostalgia and 8-year-old eyes when I watched this, but Princess Knight really had a Western feel for me.
It really does.
We were discussing this earlier, and Princess Knight reminds me a lot of Rocky and Bullwinkle or Mr. Peabody and Sherman. Like, if you had asked me to compare that up against my first animes, like Kiki's Delivery Service or Sailor Moon, I wouldn't have said Princess Knight was an anime in the traditional sense. I would have said, oh, it probably has some anime influence, but no, it goes right alongside those other older Western cartoons, I thought.
But I think a lot of that also has to do with the theme and, like, the story, like, concepts. Because for me, whenever I was young in daycare, it's daycare, so they've got a lot of those really cheap VHS videos, those, like, straight to VHS, like, it's the Grimm's fairy tale stories. And that's a lot of what those kinds of episodes of Princess Knight reminded me of, because if I'm honest, it's those things that don't necessarily look like there was, like, a ton of effort put into that, and again, that might just be the English editing, like the English versions. But it feels like these kinds of stories we've heard over and over, just maybe shown in a slightly new light. But I like the idea of having a girl as the main character, because that did kind of change it a little bit.
Yeah, I guess for me, Princess Knight, the stories kind of reminded me just like of shows like Ed and Eddie. No, I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that there was really nothing going on in those episodes. But whereas Ed and Eddie had like interesting things happening, like it was crazy, chaotic, and I enjoyed it, Princess Knight didn't really have that going on for it. It just, okay, here's the story, here's things that are happening. Some more things happen, there's some action, and then everything gets resolved in 2 minutes at the end.
Did you notice that literally they end each episode almost completely the same way, where it's like a fading shot, and they play the music and it swells. Okay, well that's over. Cool.
That I honestly never noticed that, but that's how bland some of the shows were that I wouldn't have noticed that.
And maybe I started noticing that because I was becoming a little bitter towards watching the last couple of episodes. I didn't get to finish it all, by the way. I really tried, but it was tough.
Oh yeah, I guess we forgot to mention that we technically haven't seen all the episodes. I tried to find all of them, but I missed 2 episodes, which I think are the climactic episodes. But we have a mostly working knowledge of the show.
We tried. We know what it's about, mostly.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Try if you can. But I'll make you a bet that you'll never be able to do it.
Well, I'll make you a bet, too.
Go away.
I'll see you later on, Princess. Take care now.
So, the next point we're going to talk about is, did it hold up to all the claims we put out? Was it a first in many fields? How did Princess Sapphire represent non-binary? All these different things that we said, yeah, it did this. When we watched, did it hold up?
Well, the first thing I want to talk about is Sapphire herself and being a non-binary character. In the grand scheme of things, yes, I think I can hold the suspension of disbelief that she could be a boy or a girl. But I think a lot of that is challenged because of the English dub. Because the English dub, which we can show, gave her an extraordinarily high-pitched, very obviously girly voice.
Oh, hello there. I'm the prince. You are very pretty. Your entire being is lovely. I'll be your prisoner. You're divine. You mean that you're really a young prince? Yes, I am. Now will you let me be your secret sweetheart, Princess Bella? My, that young man is very friendly.
But that being said, I also have to agree. For the most part, I can suspend my disbelief. Or actually, I would even argue that she's gender fluid.
That is true.
I think that's a better description for her, because there's moments where she wants to be a little boy. Very evident in the first half of the show, where she has to protect her identity. But then, come later, she has moments where she wants to be feminine and wear a dress and do girl things. There's an episode where she wants to cook. That's basically the main plot of that episode, where she's cooking.
And that is another thing, too, is when it is revealed that she's eventually a girl and she and her mother are sent off to this, dungeon tower thing.
What would we consider the mid-season climax point?
Mm-hmm. She's forced to do a lot of what I guess might be typically considered feminine things, where she has to do a lot of cleaning and she has to do a lot of cooking for the guy who runs the tower. I forget his name. He was not really necessarily very important.
No. Who cares?
Who cares what his name is? But she manages to do it in not necessarily such a girly way. She kind of still does it in a very spirited, boyish fashion, even if, at some point the mice come and help her in a very Cinderella-esque way. But it still feels, not necessarily super girly or princessy.
Yeah, I think one of the main things we said is that she has a childlike quality.
Yeah. Which
children, especially young children, I think she's supposed to be 13 though. She's supposed to be a little bit up there, but taking that into consideration, young children have a very gender binary or gender fluid description. They go between 2 different things where we consider something more masculine or something more feminine. And Princess Knight, or Prince Knight as she's sometimes called, kind of fits that. She just goes between whatever she feels most comfortable with at the time.
It's true. Although it is a little bit jarring occasionally, because she has these moments, for example, I think it was episode 32, where she's on this ship with our favorite character ever. His name is Captain Blood.
We'll get to him in the next segment.
And previously, he had met her, and I believe that he knew she was a girl. And he says, "Oh, here, have this dress. I know it would look good on you. You're a cute little girl." She's like, "No, I'm a boy. I don't wear pretty dresses." Blah, blah, blah. And she just vehemently just screams about it. And then he's like, "Well, okay, whatever." And he walks out of the room, and then instantly, just a snap. She's just like, "Oh, this dress is so beautiful." And then later, she does something where she's singing to distract the sirens, and I was like, what's happening?
Oh yeah, because her voice was so beautiful that it could overpower the sirens.
And then
voice.
afterwards he was like, "Thank you for saving us. You saved us again." And it's like, she didn't really do anything.
There's a couple moments where, and again, especially in the beginning when her identity is threatened and she has to protect herself more, where she has questionable lapses in judgment.
Yeah.
Where she's like, "Oh, I need to be this boy, but I want to wear a dress maybe this time." And so she gets stuck in situations where she's put in a dress and forced into this feminine role that she outwardly hates but internally really likes.
Which, actually, now that I think back on it, coming from the very first episode where Choppy makes her wear a dress to distract the fox, at that point she actually is saying, "No, I don't like this," as she's wearing the dress, and there's never at any point where she says, "I do like this." But it kind of progresses through the episodes where she does start accepting and embracing her feminine side a little bit more. So I guess we could say that's kind of a growth as a character and kind of embracing both sides of yourself rather than, choosing to stick to one thing that you think you have to be.
But that being said, our analysis of the other female characters are less interesting.
Yeah.
Princess Knight is by far the most interesting character to me in that whole show.
Oh, definitely.
The other females do fit into the black and white category. There's my favorite character. He's a minor villain. There's Satan. Spoiler alert.
Satan's in this, yeah.
Satan is a main villain. Or minor main villain.
Or at least they call him Satan in the English dub. We're not sure if he's actually got another name in the Japanese version. He could. He totally could.
So Satan has this daughter named Senda.
Is it Senda?
Senda. I don't know.
I think it's Benda.
It's either Senda or Benda.
We're terrible.
So he has a daughter, and of course she's very sexily drawn, which...
Very short skirt, her shoulders are bared, she barely even has any shoes. Is she wearing shoes?
No, she's not.
I was like, I thought there was something on the bottoms of her feet, but I was like, are those shoes, or is she just, I don't know.
So, she's the daughter of Satan, but she's the most pure, innocent girl in the entire world.
It's true.
She's very demure, she talks in a very soft voice, she moves very softly, she has magical powers, and when she changes into white creatures that are delicate.
Right, yeah.
She changes into a white delicate cat or a white
swan,
which, although swans are assholes, they are seen as graceful, beautiful creatures.
I guess that's true.
And then the queen is also kind of the same token, where she's very elegant, demure, she speaks with a soft voice, and she's pretty weak and helpless. Senda's pretty weak and helpless too most of the time. I mean, she has moments where she saves Prince Knight, but she doesn't really do anything.
No, she doesn't really do a whole lot. But then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got your evil characters, which usually they can range from being the gross old hag crone or witch or something, that just basically an old lady, or there's actually an ice queen, but that kind of ice queen stereotype where she's very beautiful but very frigid and sharp, and that kind of sexy character, I guess.
Yeah. It's pretty bad on that front. Prince/Princess Knight is very interesting and complex, and then everyone else around her is just not.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which makes the
really
stories
sad.
Really difficult to get into half the time.
Yeah.
What else did we say?
There was the fact that she has to hide her identity. That's something that's kind of a weird cut and dry kind of topic to touch on, because throughout the first half of that series, she's hiding her identity as a gender, her gender identity, which even then it's not necessarily hiding it, she's just being herself, but she's saying I'm a boy, not a girl, when it's pretty obvious that she's kind of a girl. And then that's
because of the voice.
That's the voice. But then in the latter half, when it is discovered she is a girl, and then the king passes a law saying, okay, girls can rule now, everything's all right. Then the conflict becomes, well, everybody just wants to kill her. At that point, she has become the Phantom Knight, where she wears kind of like a Zorro mask and like a slightly different colored costume from her normal. And at that point, everybody accepts she's automatically a boy because they don't know that it's her. So she can go around in her normal appearance, and everybody's like still calling her both by masculine and feminine qualities, but everybody just assumes that the Phantom Knight is a guy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
In both sections where she's both Prince Knight, hiding her gender, and then the Phantom Knight, she's often the hero of the day. As in, she saves a bunch of people. And there's times where she gets into trouble and she needs saving, but for the most part, she's the one that does the saving. Her boyfriend, Prince Frank, she saves him a lot.
She saves him a lot.
I think it's the second episode where with her and Prince Frank gets her into trouble because of the stupid magic pen. And again, it's her own fault slightly, but he also like kind of pokes the fire a little bit.
It's like, I know you're a boy. No, I'm not I know you're a girl, sorry. He's like, I know you're a girl. No, I'm not a little girl. Yes, you are. Here, write with this pen that you're a little boy. Okay, I wrote it. Oh no, it says I'm a little girl.
So he kind of starts it, and in the end, like, he comes to kind of save her by dueling. But even then, I would argue that she still comes out as the savior because she saves herself. She doesn't wait for anyone to come save her.
You know, you look real fine for a little girl.
I'm not a princess. Don't you believe what I say?
Oh, come on. No one can hear us now. You can tell me the truth. I won't tell.
I am the true prince of Silverland. Now I don't want to hear any more about it.
Here, take this.
This is a pen. What should I do with this thing?
Just a minute. Now, paper and ink. Good. So you're a little prince, huh? Now write, Prince Knight is a strong little boy.
And why should I write that?
This is not an ordinary pen. Write what I said to write.
Prince Knight is a strong little boy.
Look at what you wrote. I'll bet you'll really be surprised when you see it.
Prince Knight is a little girl.
Ha! Now you've confessed the truth to your best friend.
Alright, so now I guess we can just talk about some random things that might have caught our attention while we were watching this. Because there's a lot.
The main one being Hot Bishy Prisoner.
Oh, Hot Bishy Prisoner, steal my heart. That's what we call him, but technically I think the character's name was Captain Blood. He was introduced in an earlier episode where he was imprisoned by Duke Duralaman and Milan in their boat. And it was really funny because the way he was introduced is it's showing all of these prisoners in chain rowing the boat, and they're all these old, gross looking men, and then it just shows Hot Bishy face, and you're just like, whoa, this is like a huge change.
Which, I mean, we could argue that a lot of the good people are seen as like attractive, and you're like, oh, I love them, they're so good looking, and the evil people like the Duke, Nilon, they're not really attractive.
Yeah. Although, and that's what we were saying, is like usually the episodes with the characters are the only ones we remember because we remember these really interesting characters. But like you said, the flower episode, that was another one, and that was just strange because the editing, just the setting of it, and then the two like hot flower spirits or whatever they were.
I actually...
Because that episode was a mess. It confused me.
Really? I would say it's one of my favorite episodes, just in the sense of it actually had a lot going for it. Like I said, most of the episodes for Princess Knight, I don't really remember, or they're kind of fairy tales, which
I've already seen,
and I don't care about. Whereas the flower episode was really interesting in that I got a strong moral, environmental message from it. Like, it was actually making a statement.
Yeah, because he built the castle on top of the flowers and he was destroying them. So.
Yeah, and the Duke wanted to knock down the castle because he wanted the land or something, blah, blah, blah.
He was trying to build something to, like, again, destroy Prince Knight.
So, for me, the flower episode was a little confusing on editing, but message-wise, it was perhaps my favorite episode next to any episode with Satan.
It had good characters, again. That's one of the reasons why we remember it, is those two Prince flower characters were really interesting. And not to mention fairly good looking.
They were. And then...
They reminded me a lot of Rubius and Prince Demande from Sailor Moon, the Black Moon arc.
I see. And then... Satan was definitely interesting.
Satan.
I didn't care for Cinda, but Satan was really interesting in that he was all-powerful, but the moment Choppy got near him, because Choppy's an angel, he's like, oh no, the angel's near me, I can't do anything, And it's really funny, because I don't know, did you get to see his wife?
Maybe at one point, but I don't remember her.
So, later in the series, a curveball out of nowhere, his wife comes back, Cinda's mom, and it's really funny because she is way more evil than Satan. She actually chastised Satan for Cinda's behavior.
He's like, you're making our daughter not evil enough.
Pretty much, she's like, with your gentle love, Cinda is not being evil, and I need to teach her to be evil. And she yells what Cinda yells, which is Jezebel. She yells the same thing.
Okay, so they've got like the same magic. Although I gotta tell you, like, I do kind of like the idea of the dads in this, like, for instance, the kind of, I want to call it the dad trope in this series.
Oh, yeah.
Because the king, even Duke Duralamon and Satan are all dads, and they've all got this kind of like a bumbling thing going on where they just keep screwing stuff up. One of the things I remember is recently, one of the later episodes is like, Satan's trying to find Vinda, and he thinks she's in a pot, and he's like trying to open the pot, and he's like, "Oh, won't you just come out, darling?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I can't open this pot unless you come out." And she's like taking Prince Knight somewhere, and he's just sitting there by this pot. It's so funny.
And I would actually argue that, going off the dad trope, that they're all maybe not great dads, but they all really care for their children.
They do.
Like, the king really loves Princess Knight, and like, he feels tormented because of the stupid law that takes 25 episodes for him to change. And then even the Duke says, "Oh, plastic." His son saves plastic.
Yeah, Prince Plastic. That's one thing we haven't actually talked much about. Duke Duralamon and Nilon and Prince Plastic.
Yeah, the Duke really cares for his son. Like, he goes out of his way to make Prince Knight and her life miserable, but the moment Plastic comes on the scene, he's like, "I need to take care of Plastic. Plastic is my main goal. I'm going to spoil him, like, rotten."
Pretty much. Because that's one of the things is, like, Nilon's definitely, like, the bumbling minion, because we do see technically more of Nilon than we do of Duke, which I got so sick of Nilon's voice. Hello there, Prince. How are you today? I know they did that voice because it's got that weird nose.
Well, little prince, I see you're taking a ride by yourself, huh?
Sir Nilon, I do not like you, so please leave.
I'm very sad to hear that. You see, I came here to ask you if you wanted to sword fight with me.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Come on, let's fight.
But I feel like Duralamon's a little bit less of a threat. He didn't feel as much of a threat to me as Nilon did, and that's more, I guess, because we did see that kind of human quality of him because he loves his son so much. Which, you know, that's his motivation, so I guess it's a good thing they did focus on that quite a bit. And then, another person I would like to talk about, Prince Frank.
Prince Frank.
Talk about interesting characters. This is probably one of the least interesting characters, which is really sad because he appears so much in the latter half of the season.
Not only that, but he's the love interest to Princess Knight.
So bland. He's like the ultimate bland character. I'm like, Princess Knight, why do you like him? Why do you like this man?
Right?
Is it just because he's handsome and he can do princely things? I don't know.
Well, it's time to go now.
Please come back soon.
A present for you, Prince Knight.
I don't like flowers.
But you'll learn to like them someday, I'm sure. Goodbye.
Goodbye, Prince.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I couldn't honestly tell you any defining characteristics of Prince Frank, except that he has a tendency to kind of be a jerk and get people in trouble.
It's true. And he gets caught a lot and trapped, and Princess Knight has to save him.
Yeah, so, I mean, in that sense, it's refreshing that he's the damsel in distress, but he's not interesting enough for me to care about.
Which is really funny because if you parody or reflect that on like damsels in distress in, you know, media, they're usually the ones that are really bland and
Yeah.
they have no. So it's kind of the same thing there. So I don't know if they did it on purpose, but kudos to them.
And then, sorry,
Last one.
I actually wanted to touch back very briefly before we get to the last one.
Okay.
Sorry, about Satan and his wife.
Okay.
Because there's an interesting moment, and I'm sure we'll show it to you because it's just so fascinating. One of the last episodes, Satan and his wife basically choose to save their daughter over being evil, and because of that, they're punished. But they're punished and all three of them are punished, sorry, the daughter included, but they're punished in the most bizarre way imaginable. There's an evil force, which I guess you could call the Great Evil Force.
The X Nation or something?
No. It's the Great Evil Force that lives in hell.
The basically Satan's boss.
Yeah, Satan has a boss. And he basically turns Satan into a mountain, the wife into a lake. And you're like, okay, well, that's kind of sucks, but it's interesting. And then he turns to Cinda, who she was previously saving a human that she had fallen in love with. And that's why her parents had to save her, because she was getting herself into trouble because she can't save herself. So the great power turns to her and says, oh, I turned your father into a mountain and your mother into a lake, and you will get the worst punishment of all. You will be human. And you're just like,
oh, guess that sucks, man.
Like, okay, so she lost her powers, but she gets to be with the one she loves?
It's one of those backward punishments where I guess those higher powers always think that being human is like the worst thing ever or something.
Yeah, so I mean, that was kind of an interesting just episode punishment.
Yeah, but I guess, you know, if you think about it, that is something they do use a lot in like those kinds of fairy tales where they're like, you know, sorry, you don't get to be magic anymore, you're a human now. Anyways,
so the last one.
I'm sure you know what it is.
It's Choppy.
It's Choppy.
We're going to talk about Choppy.
Basically, all you need to know about Choppy is he's completely useless. He's the worst sidekick ever. He does nothing.
There are episodes where maybe like for 3 or 4 episodes at a time, he just won't show up.
Yeah, he's just not there. They're just kind of, the writers are just like, well, Choppy's so useless, we don't really need him here.
Which,
like,
I'm not complaining about it. It's a breath of fresh air. I don't care about Choppy.
And it's actually funny because in one of the recent episodes, one of the last episodes, somebody does say, oh, this is the kid that's always following Princess Knight around. He's like, I'm not a kid, I'm her assistant. And you're like, no, when have you ever done anything to assist her, Choppy? You're useless. Get out of here.
And then his voice is
terrible.
His voice has,
think of that Mickey Mouse on crack.
That fake Mickey Mouse voice that people do, where they go, ho ho,
my Princess Knight, you gotta come with me. So irritating.
Ah, this is the right wagon. I wonder if cute little Corette is safe. I want to find out what happened to the Snow Princess. Listen, Corette, I'll kick the monster and hit him and beat him and take care of him. You won't have to worry when Choppy goes into action. I'll put an end to that horrible monster once and for all.
Well, you know, you do what you gotta do. And if you've got an annoying character, give him an annoying voice. Because that's all he is he's just annoying. You get your later magical girls and they have sidekicks that are for the most part doing something useful. He does nothing useful. He just follows her around. Like, let's even talk about the fact that he's supposed to be getting her blue heart back from her. The first episode, it's mentioned one time. He never does anything again. He's just there. He's just following her around, being her friend, and he doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Good for you, Choppy.
Very nice.
Oh!
Terrariman, what do you think you're doing?
Well, I'm just,
Get out!
Yes.
You know that you're really a girl.
I don't care now. I'm going to live and act just like a boy, and maybe someday I'll be able to straighten out this country of ours.
But wait. This was supposed to be about princesses and magic. These are just stories I heard as a little kid. Where's all the cute moon healing beans? You promised me Sparkle and Desu. Where is the Sparkle and Desu?
Too bad.
Yeah, well, we'll see about next time.